Hi, I'm Dr. Linda Mintle. Hey, thanks for listening to the Dr. Linda Mintle Show. Faith radio podcasts are only possible because of your support. Thanks for giving and for sharing with a friend.
Doing life together, reaching out with hope, encouraging one another, each step along the road. You and I can make everything a little better, doing life together.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Linda Mintle Show. I'm your host, Dr. Linda Mintle, the relationship doctor, and I'm here along with my co-host, sitting right across from me, the other Dr. Mintle, my husband, Norm.
What would happen if I sat beside you?
The studio's not configured that way. I mean, you can sit, you can angle from, you could sit, but I guess there is a mic right here.
I could sit next to you.
Boy, that would be really hard to talk to you, though. I'd have to turn my head all the time.
That's true.
So we have to do it this way. So you're across from me. And every weekend we are here and we're doing life together. We are doing it not side by side.
No, face to face.
Face to face.
Face to face. Yeah, and it's good to be back in the studio. It's always fun.
It is.
You know, I remember we did a show not long ago on fixing common relationships problems. But we only got to 4 of them. And so we had 4 problems and 4 fixes. So I'd like to go back and cover some more of those that you've identified. It doesn't matter the order of the shows. You could listen to that one first or this one first and then go back and find the other one. They're just all relationship issues that we want to help you solve.
Yeah, and I mean, you can go through the list. If we could do this again, are we going to need another show?
I don't know if we
might need a third one, but most of these are taken really from main issues that I have seen in doing couples and family therapy, right? So whether it's a friend, a coworker, a couple, like I said, or a family member, these issues come up regularly in relationships and they need to be addressed. But we're mostly going to focus on couples issues here.
And these issues ought to be addressed. I'm sure that's the key. Mm-hmm. Not avoiding the problems and allowing them to grow, but talking about them is what we're all about. And hopefully, in that talking, coming up with solutions. So let's start with one that is a common complaint that is often heard. I feel misunderstood in my relationship.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I mean, you can only be understood, Norm, if you're communicating on a regular basis with your partner.
Or effectively.
Yeah. So people can't read your mind.
Right.
Although so many times in couples work, you know, the person thinks they should just know.
Yeah.
They should just know. And I'm like, well, they don't just know. And that's part of the reason you're feeling misunderstood is because you have to communicate. It's a two-way street. This is something, though, you do want to address right away in a relationship. Because if you don't, it's just too easy to look to other people for understanding. And that can become a major problem because it builds emotional intimacy with other people and maybe one person that is not in your relationship. And then when you feel understood by that intimate other that is not your partner, that is really a setup for an affair. And I see this in work relationships all the time.
Yes, yeah.
So turning away from your partner when you feel misunderstood creates distance, and you begin to feel detached. Then you look to other people to fill that need instead of your partner. So instead, tell your partner how you feel. You have to learn to express yourself and then turn toward that person and start to communicate about the issue.
I'm sure there are a lot of dynamics about emotion, about how you communicate, but what types of questions would be helpful?
So when you feel misunderstood, I think it helps to say, is there anything I do to give you that feeling? So if I come to you and I say, hey, I feel misunderstood, one of the things you could say to me, is there anything I do that creates that feeling?
That makes you feel misunderstood.
Misunderstood?
What am I doing that you feel, helps you feel that way, or makes you feel that way?
Yeah, or how can I connect better? That's a good question to ask the person too. Again, the main point is that I'm turning toward my partner, not away. And because that away is that isolating, that's when people medicate with alcohol or drugs, or they're gaming, or they're spending time on social media. They're not going to the source of where they feel misunderstood.
Right.
They're just medicating.
Well, it makes sense to me as a communicator that we should do this right away
Right.
when something comes up, not let it
Right.
drag on and say, well, you never. Remember what my mom told us as marriage advice? Don't ever say never and always
Right.
when you're arguing.
It was good advice.
It was great advice. So when we do that, we communicate with each other and we don't rely on somebody outside, is what you're saying. To
Not
become,
turning to that person.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You know, because what I've seen a lot is that couples will get frustrated with their spouse and then they'll talk to somebody else at work about it. And they'll just start having these intimate conversations with that person. Before you know it, they're developing an emotional intimacy with that person. That needs to be in the couple.
Right.
So when that happens, the other thing you have to think about is why. Like, are you feeling stuck in this relationship? There's no harm, and I'll say this all the time, there's no harm working with a couples therapist to help that communication get going. Sometimes, though, the lack of communication is left over from the families that we grow up in. And we need to address those patterns that we bring from our original families to the present relationship. So, you know, a lot of couples will, when you start talking to them, one person will say, well, I grew up in a family where nobody talked about their feelings or nobody dealt with that feeling bad. And so they bring that into their current relationship. And that's what happens in couples work is we identify what those patterns are that you brought in from your original families to this particular relationship.
Right. I remember we did a marriage seminar one time and you had all these suitcases and said that when you get married, you bring all this baggage with you. Well, a lot of that is what we learned from our families is what you're saying. In our case, personally, you loved to talk about problems and issues, and I was horrified because my family avoided them at all costs. And yours talked about issues all the time. So we had to find those patterns and figure out how they were impacting us as a couple.
Yeah, and then we worked on it. So we have to change those patterns, but we did. We were able to do it. And as a result of that work, I paused more before just blurting out problems, tried to be quiet, tried to think more about it, not bring everything up at the moment. And then you had to adjust by bringing things up more often.
Sure.
And so we both recognize that came from our families. In order for you and I to be good communicators, we're going to have to talk to each other.
And that was incredibly helpful and insightful. Okay, here's another common problem. You feel like you don't get enough attention from your partner.
Yeah, this is so easy to happen because we get busy, we get distracted, and we take each other for granted often in a relationship. This really happens a lot when you have kids, where you're just so busy with the schedules
exhausted
and them. But you really have to maintain that couple's friendship and intimacy. So go back to the basics. Think about what you were doing when you were dating each other.
Oh, yeah, good.
What can you do to make each other feel wanted, valued? What were you doing when you were dating that you were paying so much attention to that person? I think if you just think a little bit about that and do a few of those things, it could really help.
I know a lot of people say this, and sometimes it feels trite, but I think having a regular date night kind of takes you back to those days where you're going out, you're dressing up, you're getting ready, you're excited about having fun. You reconnect on a friendship level, and if you promise or purpose not to talk about all the things of the day or the kids or the life, that's got to help.
Yeah, and that's important. I'm glad you said it because you don't want to go out on a date and then just talk about all the problems at work or anything that's going on. You want to focus on the two of you. And I would do this. I would talk about what's going right. What do you love about each other? Bring up some fond memories, positive things that have happened, maybe funny moments. We've had a few of those in our lives.
Yeah.
And the dreams that you have going forward.
You can also talk about developing new interests. We dream about new things we want to do. We thought about it and talked about it and heard about pickleball, so we tried it.
Yeah.
I didn't do so well with it. I couldn't get the dumb serve right.
I know, but it was still really fun. It was great to get out on the court, do something together, develop a new hobby. You just have to be able to be willing to do things that you're not always great at.
Right.
But couples need that type of interaction. And, you can also develop spiritual practices together.
Yeah. I remember last year we found a Lenten devotional book and read it together every morning and discussed what we had read. It was such a great way to share our faith, pray together, worship together, Sunday school class together. When you do all of those things and you talk about it, that's where we find meaning and discover new things that we each heard differently.
Yeah, and we're looking at a little Bible study we can maybe do right now with an author that we both really like. And I think all of those things are really great suggestions because it's easy for Christian couples to really ignore their faith in terms of how it impacts them on a day-to-day basis. So you go to church, but you don't talk about it.
Right.
You go to a Sunday school class and you don't come back and you don't say anything.
You don't
about,
process.
Right. So
we process.
We do. But I think it's healthy. We're in the
do too.
car. We used to do this with our kids in the car
Right.
too, where we would say, hey, what did you think about what the pastor said? How does that relate to your life? Otherwise, it's just too easy to become complacent.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be intentional with your spiritual
Right.
life.
I like that. Okay, here's one I think is probably very, very common. Arguments over money.
Yeah, that one really is. And the thing about this is that money should be discussed when you get in a serious relationship because your spending habits may not match the other person's. And boy, does that create a lot of conflict. That's one of the number one conflict
I'll
issues
bet.
that couples fight over is money. And so I see this all the time. One person spends, the other one is frugal, and then they argue all the time. Or they both spend too much,
Right.
and then they get in debt.
That's a problem. You know, I don't remember ever talking about this.
I don't think we did.
I don't think so. I know that you tend to be more frugal and risk avoidant. We did talk about savings and not buying things extravagantly. And I like to spend, probably because I grew up as a missionary kid and had nothing.
Right.
But to make our marriage work, we do talk about spending, and we reach agreements on how much and when. And in fact, we even have a veto rule in our family. If one person says no, it's no. And that has saved us from arguing so many times because we've both agreed, first of all, that we don't want debt. So that's a good starting point.
Yeah, that was really important. And you know, Norm, I didn't grow up with much money. I mean, my parents were incredibly frugal and practical. So I brought that to the relationship. And your parents were extremely frugal as they had to make do with very, very little on the mission field.
Right.
So I think in some ways we were both careful about debt and planning. I think that sameness did help us.
I think so too. So here's a nuance. How do you handle money when you're single before you get married? Does that have an impact?
You know, that is a good question to ask somebody when you're dating them, because that might tell you a lot about the person. And a lot of times I've sent people to financial advisors if they really don't have a plan, they don't have a budget, they don't really know much about it, they're not good with money. You know, there's a lot of online videos too, and you can actually take courses on this. So,
That's true.
And some of the churches offer courses on finances. So, you know, talk to the person about how do you spend prior to getting married, and then come up with a plan that you can
Good.
both work with together.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we do, we'll come back with a few more relationship problems, but you know what? Great solutions. Be right back. Have you ever heard this? God never makes a suggestion that we can't live up to. So when He commanded us to be anxious for nothing, He wasn't kidding. Dr. Linda's new book, Hope and Healing for Anxiety, provides sound biblical prescriptions to help you do just that. Calm your spirit and renew your mind. God is with you. Better yet, He lives inside you. Learn how to shed all anxiety. Hope and Healing for Anxiety. Get your copy today, wherever you buy your books online.
Letting Go of Worry by Dr. Linda Mintle, available on her website at drlindamintle.com and online.
Conflict is a part of every healthy relationship. How you deal with conflict is what will either grow or destroy relationships. Do you avoid? Maybe you become highly emotional and then regret what you said or did. Getting control of our emotions is not always easy, but it is possible. Hi, this is Dr. Linda Mintle, and I wrote the book We Need to Talk in order to help all of us deal better with conflict. We Need to Talk, available at bookstores and online where books are sold.
This is the Dr. Linda Mintle Show. We're happy to have you with us. Let me remind you, you can check out Dr. Linda's books, her brand new one, and her blogs at her website, drlindamintle.com, drlindamintle.com. And you can also connect with her on her social media platforms of X and Instagram at Dr. Linda Mintle. Or you can find her on Facebook at Dr. Linda Mintle, author and speaker. And please don't forget, I mentioned her newest book. It's about anxiety. It's a workbook that helps everybody understand what anxiety is and how to eliminate it from their life. It's called Hope and healing for anxiety. And there's a link on our website, drlindamental.com, or anywhere you buy books online.
I'm excited about that book. It's helping a lot of people, getting good reviews. And the whole point of writing that, Norm, was just to give people some tools and practical things they can do when they start to feel anxious. And, the Bible tells us to not be anxious about anything. So God gave us ways to handle that. And actually, the scriptures are quite prescriptive, but I think it helps also to understand how the brain and the body work.
Sure.
When we get anxious, and some things that you can do to calm both your brain and your body at the same time.
Because they all work together,
They all
as
work
you've
together.
said many times.
Yep.
All right, we're talking about relationship problems. Here's one I think that affects maybe a lot of people. I have no idea how many, but it seems like there are a lot of people who live with someone who has unhealthy habits.
Yeah, really affects a lot of people, actually. And it's a hard area sometimes to bring up because it has to do with the person's drinking. Maybe their gaming habits, where they're playing video games all day, all night, or drug habits. Those are really, really difficult to live with. So, for example, it's one thing for two people to live in a house and be smokers. But if you have a person that is in there that does not smoke, that is very difficult. It's also very unhealthy because of the secondhand smoke. But it's really hard. And you need to work on these things because it's affecting you as a couple.
Well, and habits, as we know, are very, very hard to break, especially these addictive ones. You've talked about the brain chemistry and all of this, but you have to address these to save your relationship.
Yeah, and I want to say that even though we know that addiction is a chronic brain disease, you can stop it. You can change your brain, and it takes a lot of work, but especially when we're talking about addictions, because that is something that really brings destruction into any relationship. And if you don't start addressing it, then what happens is people really get problematic with this, and then they just leave. And then I hear people in the hospital all the time going, I'm here because my wife left me. I'm here because, my son won't talk to me. I can't see my grandchildren because of this. So whether it's alcohol, pornography, drugs like marijuana, which is currently ruining a lot of relationships.
Right.
Unhealthy habits just create a lot of tension and conflict that is hard to reconcile when a person continues to engage in them. So what do? You have to talk to your partner about the way the addiction is destroying your relationship. And a lot of times you need some professional help.
So if you attack it from it's ruining us rather than it's killing you.
Because it is. It's ruining the way you deal with each other and talk to each other and love on each other. That cycle of enabling and denial will stop if you get some help for it. So lots of help out there. There's a great help in the church called Celebrate Recovery that was originally established by Reverend Warren out in Saddleback Church, and it's in a lot of churches, and it really helps with these bad habits.
Okay, there's another issue that comes up from time to time. Here it is. You don't like your partner's friends, and they may not like you.
I know.
That's tricky.
We've had to deal with this, haven't we?
We have.
Yeah. I mean, if you simply don't get along with some friends, I don't think you have to spend a lot of time with them. Right? I mean, you can balance the time. And maybe your partner spends time with her friends alone, and then you decide which of your friends you both like to do things with. I mean, that's tricky. You have to have conversations about that. I don't want to stop somebody from seeing somebody they really like just because I'm not real excited about the spouse. Right.
Well, we've seen this in our relationship. You have some women friends that you like to be around, spend time with, and I don't really necessarily enjoy being with them as a couple, with their spouse. And I know the same thing is true for you, so we've tried to find a balance.
Yeah, and we try to look for people as friends that we both like and enjoy. But I think one of the real big issues that can go a long way in this is when you have a spiritual bond with friends, because that really makes a difference. Because then you can tolerate a lot of things. I mean, we had what was our group? It was just a small group, wasn't it, in our church?
Yes.
We had all kinds of personalities in that group.
Yes, we did.
And we somehow got along because of the spiritual bond that we had, and we tolerated each other, and we gave grace, and we were living out the gospel with each other. So I don't want to push people away from, people just because they don't like them. I think it's good to try to give grace and try to work with everybody that you're seeing, but you can be choosy about the people you spend a lot of time with. Too.
Well, there is that interpretation of the scripture, iron sharpens iron,
Yeah.
meaning you kind of rub against each other and it can be for your good.
Yeah, and I don't know that we want to force friends on each other. And I don't think you need to make it a big deal. I think it's just if you say, oh, I like to hang out with this person.
Right.
I'm going to go have lunch with this guy. And maybe I don't know the wife that well or want to. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. We don't have to do everything together.
Okay, here's another one. You have a feeling that you're giving this relationship everything you've got, but your partner isn't. You feel like they're not fully vested in or invested in the relationship.
Yeah, and this is hard because our culture is really big on this. So it's this contract of marriage, quid pro quo, where I need to give you something and I need to get just as much out of it.
Right.
And we've really secularized, that's a hard word to say,
It is, isn't it?
secularized our thinking on this whole idea because marriage is a covenant. It's not a contract. And that means it's an unbreakable promise. I think that's a concept that's been lost in our culture
think so,
because of
completely.
how easily people
Yep.
divorce.
Right.
But in God's way, he really wants marriage to last for a lifetime. That's what that covenant part is about. So be careful who you choose, first of all, and then be careful not to give up on the person when things aren't going your way. And certainly, you shouldn't be keeping score as to how much you give and take, because that's just going to build resentment, right?
Right.
So if there's a problem, fix it when it happens and don't hang on to these things and keep a scorecard.
Well, that takes us back to communicating when there's an issue right away, like we
It
said
does.
earlier in the program. Our culture puts so much emphasis on us finding and getting what we deserve.
Yeah.
We deserve to be happy. We deserve this kind of food. We deserve this kind of a car. Every other commercial uses the
know.
word deserve.
And I yell at that when I hear
know
it,
you
don't
do.
I? I always
Yeah.
go like, we don't deserve that. Why do we deserve that? I'm always questioning that on commercials.
But we do want people in couples to be happy. We also want them to do the work to keep their marriages strong. We don't deserve anything. Whatever we get, especially from God, it's called grace, and we need to learn to accept it from other people as well as from God.
We have to really fight that.
Yes.
That thinking. Because if you think about media messages and how often that message is just put into our brain, you deserve, you deserve, you deserve, you do you,
Yeah.
you deserve this.
Your truth.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so in everything that we think. So to go against that and to really understand the concept of grace, that we don't deserve a thing, and that we're here because of God's grace in our life. If we can take that positioning in our life, it's going to make a big difference. Right. So if you feel that your partner isn't committing in important ways, talk about that. Don't just, avoid it. And don't just start becoming resentful about it. Talk about it. Because you know what? It could be a sign that there's some serious problem there and that you've been ignoring it, avoiding it, whatever it is. But if it goes on for a long time, the problem is you're going to drift apart from that person. It's going to pull you apart.
Right. Okay, here it is, the PG part of the show. What about the lack of sexual intimacy? That's an indicator of serious problems, right?
Yeah. It's and intimacy isn't just physical. It's mental, it's emotional, and spiritual. And I teach sexual history to the med students. We always talk about how for women, it's the relationship, the intimacy, the emotional intimacy that is so important in that, in terms of having that sexual relationship. So this is one area where you really do have to get at the root of the problem. No sex in a marriage is not normal. I just want people to know that because people bring that up all the time. You're wired for intimacy. You cannot ignore this one.
Right. And couples need to stay spiritually strong. I think that's our message.
It is. It is. So if you stay spiritually strong, it's going to make a big difference, right? If you continue to live your life with the golden rule to love God with all your heart and then love others as yourself, that's going to be a game changer in your relationship. Spiritual connection with God and with each other is probably the most significant intervention to making a relationship work. It sets you up to be humble, sacrificial, accountable to God, and accountable to others. So, as we close our time together, assess your spiritual life. It may be the first correction to make before you can work on anything else that we've talked about. Well, that's all the time we have today. Many thanks to our co-host, Norm Mintel, who makes this show a conversation, and to our technical producer, Wanjing Pu, and our editor, Katie Sims-Wilson. Hey, from all of us here at Faith Radio, we'll talk to you again next weekend. In the meantime, remember, we're doing life together, and it's better when you don't have to do it alone.
Doing life together.
Hey, thanks for listening to this conversation from the Dr. Linda Mintel Show. These conversations are available because of your support. Become a supporter now at myfaithradio.com. Please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes, and share it with friends so we can live life to the fullest, walk confidently, and find healing and hope.